welcome to my channel about writing stuff. My name's Camille, and today we are doing an update vlog plus a this is what submission was like vlog. I'm not going to bury the lead, so we're currently closing out this round of submissions, so Christy and I have decided to shelve my Southern cultist horror YA novel, which is disappointing. You know, it always hurts to shelve a story, or for the story not to sell. But thankfully, before I got my agent, I had shelved 9 books. So the heartbreak isn't foreign to me. It still sucks, but it's disappointing, not devastating. Plus, I'm a firm believer in things happen for a reason. So hopefully, this book will find its home somewhere down the line, like its right home. But it's going to be on the shelf for now. But anyways, the good news is that I did record real time on submission vlogs, because regardless of whether or not my book sold, I did want to share with you guys the real time emotional turmoil and roller coaster that is submission. So we were on submission. It was 2 separate rounds for over a year. So I have like 5 real-time vlogs that I'm going to upload this week, just so that I can be, I want to be transparent with you guys. I want to show anyone who's curious what the submission process actually looks like. Yeah, but I also, in this video, I'm just going to do like a condensed timeline. But also I want to help those who are currently on submission that have maybe been on submission for a week or a month or a few months. That's not long at all. That is not long at all. So hang in there, everybody who's on submission. You got this. But yeah, so I want to walk through a timeline, and then do like a life update slash how to deal with imposter syndrome slash creativity talk. Just stuff that's been weighing on me since we've closed out our submission and everything. So anyway, timeline. Christy and I went out to like 10 or so, like between 10 and 13 editors, November 2019. You may have realized it is now 2021. So our first round of submission was over a year ago. So November 2019, we went out on submission. And that's always really exciting, because we got a flood of full requests from all of these editors at Big Fives. And then 2 weeks after we went out on submission, we got an R&R from a very renowned YA editor, and that was incredibly exciting. We got a lot of early interest, so you'll see in the real-time vlogs how excited I was for that. And then, let's see, we ended up closing that round early. So we went out in November of 2019 and, circled back about 4 months later, around March 2020. And, Christy was like, hey, so the editors have had your story for so long. I really want to jump on this R&R because it would be a great opportunity, yada, yada. So I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. We had another R&R from another editor, but we ended up taking the one from the first editor. So nerve wreckage time. In April, I actually got to have a call. It was like an hour-long phone call with this really great editor and Christy, just talking about the story, talking about things that were strong, things that could be strengthened, and things that would need to change, or that the editor would want changed. And that was really interesting, because that whole conversation was not only about the book and like the South and cults and all dark storytelling tropes, but it was also about like antiques and just typical nerdy stuff like antiques and boarding schools and all this. So it was a great conversation. Definitely one of the highlights. Despite the book not selling in the end, it's that's an experience you can't really get any other way. So that was wonderful. And after that call, I ended up getting a 5-page edit letter from that editor, and it was daunting, but everything in the edit letter I definitely agreed with to varying degrees. There were some things that were like killing my darlings, but most everything I agreed with. So Christy and I took about a month and a half, went through a round of edits and then another, and then got notes from Christy and then another, just, back and forth quickly, and got these revisions done, turned around, and sent it back to the editor. And unfortunately, it ended up being one of those situations where our visions for the story just didn't align. I went into that book wanting it to be a very character-centered, friendship-centered story, whereas this editor, and from what I know of what she represents in her list, she represents more fast-paced thriller-type stories, which my book did have some of that suspense and mystery, but that wasn't the heart or the focus. And, that's something Chrissy and I talked about prior to going into, like, really diving into the revisions was, how much are you willing to change? Like, are you willing to sacrifice your vision for the story to meet this editor's vision for the story? And I always knew that my answer would be no. I write all of my stories with purpose. Everything is attached, and it's sacrificing. It would end up being a story that I didn't want to write and that I never wanted to write in the first place, which was unfortunate, but it was one of those things where it was a great experience. That edit letter alone taught me quite a lot about writing, and the phone call really helped break the stigma of, it's daunting to talk to a renowned editor, especially about things that I made. It felt really obscure and weird, but it helped with, like, my nerves, and to break that stigma of, oh yeah, this is just another person, this is another nerd who likes weird things like I do. So again, great experience, definitely the highlight of the submission process in several ways. But anyway, since that didn't work out, unfortunately, Christy and I regrouped. We took a couple weeks, went through the manuscript again just to see if there was anything we wanted to change back to how it was originally. And then we went out wide on submission again to like another 10 to 13 editors in July of 2020. And then what was interesting about the second round is all of publishing was quiet. All of publishing was slow, because you're talking about, like mid-pandemic lockdowns and just the stress of that, everyone working from home, money being an issue. So in August, Christy followed up with everyone, and just there was not as much excitement this time around, but moreover, there was not as much communication. That was a big one. So we decided to close out in March, the second round, and we still had like half of our list out to editors, and it was just weird. Like the first round is everyone was really excited and eager to give their thoughts and communicating, and there was interest. But this round, it's like, I don't think we've heard back from half of the editors yet, despite us, telling them, hey, we're closing. So I don't know if it's just like COVID thing, lockdown thing, people not being in the office thing, people being behind, but it's, July to March is a long time. So I don't know. Anyways, but again, I'm going to be posting all of the real-time vlogs over the next coming days, so you can experience all of my anxieties and ups and downs with me, and just so fun. But yeah, so that's what submission was like on a very condensed timeline-ish scale. And I want to talk to you guys about imposter syndrome now, because that was one of my big struggles. As soon as Christy and I went out on the first round of submission, and then it was, like 2 weeks later, R&R, and then, we ended up going a few months later into the edit letter and doing the round of revisions. I had such bad imposter syndrome during that first round of submissions because, I'd written at that point 10 books, but my imposter syndrome was coming from this place of, well, shit. Not only is my critique partner going to read this, but my agent's going to read whatever's new that I've written. It was the typical, what if I've forgotten how to write? What if I've forgotten how to tell a story? What if this next story isn't as good as the one that she signed me on? What if she doesn't like it? What if she doesn't want to represent it? What if she thinks it's utter trash and needs to get torn to shreds and redone? So the idea of starting something new just terrified me to the point where I could not start something new. So I spent some time revising an old story, which I did send to Christy at some point, and our visions didn't really align on it. She viewed it more as like a middle grade, whereas I viewed it more of like a between middle grade and YA protagonist, but with more adult themes. So I wanted it to fit squarely in YA, and trying to finagle it to work in middle grade wouldn't have worked, and then trying to finagle it to really sit comfortably in YA would have taken away a lot of, what I'd planned for the story. So I ended up shelving that. And I tried to work on something new, but it was just so much like the last several books I had written. It was another contemporary fantasy, family secrets, weird magic, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't love it. I was not in love with these new ideas. And it got to a point where I was really down on myself because the previous years I had written, 2 or 3 books each year. And this last year being on submission, or that whole time, I hadn't written anything new. I hadn't written and completed anything new. I'd only revised a story, tried writing something new, and failed epically. Like got 3 chapters in and just failed. So I was really down on myself, and I couldn't figure out why. I couldn't figure out why I could not sit down and start something new, because literally nothing else in my life at that point had changed aside from being on submission. And I realized that I had not been learning or consuming art, which is a big thing for me. After I finish a big project, I have to transition or a big writing project, for instance, I have to transition into doing like art, or I have to transition into consuming a lot of literature or consuming a lot of like college lectures or something, just to fill the well, right? And I realized that the whole time I'd been on submission, I hadn't really read anything new. I hadn't really watched any new TV shows. I hadn't really taken the time to, listen to podcasts or watch lectures like I used to, or read craft books or anything like that. So I was like, well, let's create some art, because I also hadn't, created anything tangible. Like I had been doing writing stuff and revising, but I hadn't created any tangible art in a long time, which was also heartbreaking. Like, talk about disappointed with the book not selling. Not being able to create anything is devastating, especially for me, because I'm usually just constantly in this maker's frame of mind. So I bought a bunch of audiobooks on my TBR. I loaded up a bunch of craft books, and I loaded up a bunch of books that I had read before, because I do like to revisit books that I'd read before. And I said, okay, we're doing a big art project. And when I mean big art project, I mean big art project. So I listened to a bunch of audiobooks. I listened to a bunch of craft books. I watched TV. I listened to lectures and art, and just all the things. I just consumed as much art as possible while I made art. And that's my favorite part about making art, is I can multitask, so I can consume art while I make art. So I spent like 3 months creating a tarot deck. All original art, all 78 cards, front and back. And then I spent a month formatting. And this was, all in the summer. This was all during that second round of submission that we talked about. So summer to fall, or like spring to fall. And, yeah, got my tarot cards. I did get them printed, which was nice. These ones will be up for sale soon too, if anyone's a tarot nerd. But it is Twisted Circus theme. So I don't know if you can see the tents there. It's kind of dark, but lots of tents and ribbons and circus characters, and I love it. But yeah, so I created this. I've spent 4 months creating and formatting this tarot deck and consuming all of this art, and by the end of it, I was ready. The well was full. I had inspiration, and the tarot deck actually inspired much of the story that I ended up writing. So November was coming up. It's like, all right, I haven't done NaNoWriMo in a while, and I'm inspired to the point where I have like a full outline, and I have characters, and I have backstory, and I have the setting and all this stuff. So like, let's do it. Let's write in November. And I did. I wrote the whole first draft, and it was like 88K, and during NaNoWriMo, after not writing anything new for over a year, I finally wrote something new, and it was so exciting, and I felt good about it afterwards. But funny story. So I finished the draft, and then just before I was about to go into revisions, which I like to go into my first round of revisions right after I finish that very, very first 1.0 draft, just because everything's fresh in my head. Right before I was about to go into revisions, my husband and I found out that we are expecting our first baby human. So yes, I am just under 3 months away from my due date. But yeah, I was so excited when we found out. So excited. I'm so excited now. But let me tell you, trying to go into revising your book after quitting your 15-year smoking habit, drinking, and consuming no caffeine, like quitting everything cold turkey immediately. I quit everything cold turkey. I tried to sit down and revise. I would read the same sentence like 10 times in a row, and just my eyes would start doing this. I had no idea what I'd read. My brain just refused to work. Just complete chemical breakdown in the brain space. Was not working. I could not revise for shit. And then on top of that, going into the first trimester, I got so sick. Just morning sickness, nauseous all day, couldn't eat, didn't want to eat, just wanted to sleep. Brain, again, wasn't working. Like, it felt like a depression because I was so sick and all I wanted to do was sleep. So it was like for all of like December and January, I couldn't do any writing or any art or anything besides like eat and sleep and throw up. So I wrote the story, couldn't revise it for like 2 months, and then finally started feeling more like myself again in February. And I was like, okay, we're gonna be done with revisions by the end of February. That shit didn't happen. So we got into March, and I was like, okay, I'm actually gonna be done with revisions by the end of March. And I pushed myself, and I was a few days late, but we ended up finishing, I ended up finishing revisions and edits, and then ended up getting the story to Christy for notes. So yeah, it was just really, basically, moral of the story is that, number one, things never turn out as you planned. Number two, priorities are very important. I wanted to revise, but more than that, I wanted to take care of myself. I wanted to eat properly and sleep and get rest and make sure that my baby was healthy, and all these things. And thankfully he is so far. So that's good. But, I was feeling really guilty for those 2 months that I wasn't getting anything done. But it's why I shouldn't have. It's, as much as we love writing, as much as we love our books and our characters and our stories, they're not going to love us back. So priority, it's not top of the list, But yeah, if you are struggling with the creativity or the imposter syndrome or whatever, take some time to consume art. Take some time to do other types of art, whether you like to play music, or you like to go running, or you are a food connoisseur, culinary expert, and you like to bake or cook or whatever. Make other things besides stories or different forms of stories. Make art and consume art. That's a big help. Don't forget to fill the well. Other than that, that's pretty much the whole update, I think. Like a 20-minute update. Yeah, sorry I've been gone for so long, guys, but I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have wanted vlogs of me like gagging, or me just being like, oh my god, submission is so long. So here we are. Here's the update. I will have more news coming soon, because this new story is exciting. It is creepy, small town, haunted, abandoned wharf, and someone very important to our main character goes missing. And things start to happen that are impossible, like magic necklaces showing back up and blah, blah, blah. Is it really magic or is it something else? Who knows? But yeah, so there will be more soon. I just wanted to give you guys an update and expect to see those real-time submission vlogs. If you have any questions about what submission is like, or anything in general, I'm an open book. I'm not going to give names. I'm not going to give names of editors or publishers or anything like that. But if you have questions about the general feel of things, I'm more than happy to share. So like I said, open book. So yeah, if you have questions, drop them below, or you can tweet me at Camille A. Singer. If you're interested in a tarot deck, you can follow me at Comic Crochet on Instagram. Links will be in description. So yeah, I will see you guys later, and for now, you should be writing stuff.